business owner?
Congresswoman McLean,
It's super simple.
I've had the opportunity to run organizations and lead, hire,
let me
fire, manage budgets, all of those things.
This will go a lot faster, right? It's really not a trick question. Have you ever been a business owner?
Congresswoman McLean, I have never owned a business, but I have absolutely managed businesses.
See how simple that is? I ask a question. You don't need to ruffle around. You just give me an answer to the question I have. It's really simple, right? And things will go a lot faster. If you're in charge, you're in charge. I don't think it's too much to ask that the person in charge be able to answer a simple question. So if we could just have some simple ground rules, and I'm even all right with an I don't know, right? I don't expect you to know everything, but I do expect you to know something, right? I'm going to share with the American people, if you get somebody who's in charge, especially in a government entity that can't answer a question, you should ask yourself, do we need to replace this person who can't answer a simple question? I mean, my goodness gracious, the disappointment that I have that you can't even answer a simple question is unbelievable.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Administrator Lumen, for your testimony today. I will just say, as an immigrant, on a personal note, you know, when we arrived in the U.S. in 1995, it took my dad about 2 weeks to find employment. He worked at the airport and then became a cab driver. We moved to Minnesota. He worked for the post office until he retired in 2010. I was expected to find a job to help support the family. So were all of my 6 siblings. All of us have been gainfully employed since we were 16 in this country. The idea that immigrants do not come to this country desperately searching to reach that American dream is ridiculous. And it's something that I find abhorrent, that is constantly discussed as we come to this country to just be on public benefits when we desperately want to be as equal as every other person and be gainfully employed and live the American dream.
Emmanuel Ness, the chair of your political science department, said he supports, quote, resistance by any means necessary, which includes violence. How can you say those statements that you support your Jewish friends? Shut up and get out of here.
Gentleman will suspend. Gentleman will suspend.
Get out of here, you loser. Come on. By the way, to be clear, I hold you all responsible for this. It is the attitude that you have allowed on your college campuses that make people think that this is okay. That is why this happens, because you have someone like Emmanuel Ness that says resistance by any means necessary, and I assume this person still works at your school. Is that correct?
Microphone, please.
Any call for violence against Jewish members of our community is entirely unacceptable.
So why does this person still work there?
Any individual or faculty that has a complaint of breaking our rules, we will investigate them and take the appropriate disciplinary action if warranted.
Corinna Mullen at John Jay College said, after October 7th, the right of Palestinian armed resistance is just, and just last month was filmed chanting, up, up, up with freedom, down, down, down with Zionist scum. This is a professor that teaches your Jewish students. How can you say you have an unwavering zero tolerance policy when this person teaches at your school?
Again, I believe that that faculty member is no longer teaching with the university. Any call for violence, any call for supporting Hamas or terrorism is entirely unacceptable, and we made those statements several times.
It seems that the majority on this committee is eager to continue enabling this administration's repressive agenda. President Trump's attack on civil liberties and academic freedom are well documented. While Republicans continue their charade, new information about the Trump administration's policy of ideological deportations is coming to light. Last week, a senior ICE official testified in court that the agency is using the website Canary Mission to target students for deportation. Canary Mission is an anonymous site that blacklists and doxes individuals, charging them with anti-Semitism through little evidence or zero due process. It has long been criticized for its McCarthyism tactics that surveil students, repress speech, and instill a culture of fear across campuses. This is a site that reframes attending an anti-war protest as supporting pro-Hamas rally. It is not known who runs this site, but the agenda is clear: pro-Palestinian advocacy cannot be tolerated. And now this ideological agenda has a direct line to state power. Let's recall the high-profile case of student Romeza Ozturk, who was illegally detained by ICE and held for 6 weeks after writing an op-ed in support of Palestine. Curiously, that op-ed was published entirely a year before ICE chose to target her. But right before her abduction, Canary Mission posted a profile of her on its website accusing her of anti-Israel activism for writing the article. The same profile that ICE has now admitted to using in their internal memo. In a matter of weeks, she was picked up and her student status was terminated. Canary Mission loudly claimed credit for her detention, and it seems that credit was earned. This shameless authoritarian display of weaponizing a blacklist to crack down on political speech and detain academics is a page directly out of the McCarthy playbook. President Cropes, Chancellor Rodriguez, and Chancellor Lyon, this question is for the three of you. In the light of these escalations, with students facing detention, deportation in retaliation for their clearly protected speech, how are your campuses protecting students who are exercising their First Amendment rights?
We have free speech policies that are crystal clear, and in fact, we've clarified them over time to permit speech. We don't permit any violence with regard to the promotion of any particular viewpoint, and we try to act on violations of those policies quickly and fairly.
Thank you, Chancellor Rodriguez.
We make sure that all students are informed about our policies. We want students and all the members of our community to exercise the right to free speech, but they have to do it abiding by our rules and regulations. We're also investing, as I indicated earlier, in this constructive dialogue initiative. We want individuals to have the tools to have difficult conversations, to be able to have them, but to do them in a way that is respectful and civilized. And the best way also to empower the students is to provide them with information.
Mm-hmm. Chancellor Lyons?
We are supporting with education and training over 30 anti-bias initiatives to make sure that students can see into these issues more deeply. New curriculum, like what I mentioned earlier, a course like openness to opposing views, sharpening where the no tolerance lines are, which was very, very helpful, I believe, for the students to feel like they could safely express their free speech rights. And
at what stage, to the three of you again, will you intervene when students are being doxxed? We've seen fans in front of your campuses with students being doxxed.
Well, at Berkeley, the question there is if a doxing or other discrimination or harassment event would be reported, and we would follow it up with an investigation and make a decision.
And we have a webpage that we indicate to members of the community as a resource for the different things that can be done if someone is a subject of doxing.
Reports of doxing are acted on quite quickly and investigated.
Appreciate that. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman, and now yield 5 minutes to Ms. Ilhan Omar from Minnesota.
Thanks, Chairman. Every year we have this hearing where Republicans warn us about the dangers of spending while trying to avoid the revenue part of the equation. We are told that spending is the only problem, but apparently none of these concerns apply when it comes to the Pentagon and paying off military contractors. President Trump's budget request in the Congressional Republicans' reconciliation bill would bring military spending to a new all-time high of $1 trillion. And they are doing this while proposing a 23% cut to non-defense discretionary spending in the budget proposal. This means slashing education, healthcare, nutrition assistance across the board with both Trump's budget and the reconciliation bill. Mr. Linden, is there any precedent for giving a department that has never passed a full audit a blank check of this size?
This would be the largest defense budget in nominal terms, yes, in history.
Do you think it makes any fiscal sense to increase military spending by this magnitude and in such an unchecked manner?
I think that in an environment where we are being told that we don't have enough money to make sure that every American has basic health care, or that poor families have to give up their $6 a day in food benefits, or that there's not enough money to spend on cancer research or on housing vouchers, which are things that the president proposed eliminating. It's very hard to understand why we do have money to spend on tax breaks for rich people and corporations, and there's always more money to spend on defense, but there's not enough to go around for an American who's just struggling to get by.
Yeah, thank you. It doesn't really make any sense to me as well. And Mr. Winfrey, I think you mentioned a little bit earlier that when you were at the White House in the first Trump presidency, that you were able to convince the president to not spend so much on defense. Why do you think there is just this interest right now to get us to this $1 trillion spend on the Pentagon?
I'm no defense expert, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But I don't think that what the Pentagon is dealing with right now is a money issue. Some of it is a management issue. And I'm sure that they're trying to correct for what they see as problems with the management over at the Pentagon right now with the leadership change.
Would you still advocate for us not spending $1 trillion?
Oh, listen, I would cut the vast majority of the federal budget, including, I think that there's a lot to look at in the Pentagon. I actually think that, one of the budget process reform ideas that people have talked about in the past is a zero-based budgeting, a bottom-up budgeting, and literally asking, what are we spending money on, and is it worth it? I mean,
as a former legislator, I know everybody talked about this. That is kind of what we normally do, right?
It is.
Because we are required
to
balance the budget, so we start over. But I am particularly interested in this conversation about the defense budget.
And I would start this at the Pentagon.
Yes,
I think the Pentagon is a great place to start.
I'm wondering, because I'm assuming that you and I are not on the same side of the aisle. I'm wondering if you and I can agree on the fact that the defense budget should be looked at. Why is there never really an agreement on both sides to do so? What do you think is the obstacle there?
I think that like I said, I think that there are a lot of forces from the outside who benefit from more government spending, right? And that's in the Pentagon's budget. It's also in the domestic budget. I bet this will surprise you. The highest paid healthcare insurance CEO in the country is a Medicaid managed care provider. The highest paid healthcare insurance CEO in the country. 100% of his revenue comes from the federal government. 88% of his beneficiaries are Medicaid recipients. Personally, I don't think people should be getting rich off of providing for national defense, and I also don't think that people should be getting rich off of the welfare.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I once remember my son, when he was in 6th grade, he was really upset about the number of administrators that were in the school and the fact that they got paid 3 times, 4 times more than his teachers, because he inquired. And I remember proposing legislation to level that out to make sure that wasn't existing. I do think it is important for us to have these conversations, because if you are serious about fiscal responsibility and taking care of the American people with our tax dollars, then we have to be serious about where the money is being spent and where it's going. And the fact that we have 800 military bases across the world, where our next adversary has one. It makes no sense to me, because we continue to spend money on that. We continue to have our sons and daughters live abroad for many years away from their lives, the opportunities that they could have, for no reason, while you and I pay for it. And so these are, I think, really interesting conversations, and I'm glad we're having them. Thank you.
I think the gentlelady, and if she would indulge me for a comment about defense spending, my last words to Secretary Hegseth was, we have to root out the waste at the Pentagon. We are not intellectually honest as Republicans who need help in restoring the mantle of fiscal responsibility by actually following through when we have the opportunity, like with reconciliation. And I agree with you, and I'm pleasant.
And I would say, Chairman, I thank you for saying that. You know, if you, I'm sure you visit our military bases,
Yes,
and you
I
have
have a
conversations with generals in command across the United States and abroad. Every single conversation I've had with them is that we continue to manufacture weapons that they don't need, that are sitting in stockpiles. So there is a lot of conversations that we could have about the actual waste, and there is a reason why the Pentagon has never passed a single audit. And we should join forces to make sure that they do that before we give them a single dime.
And every time I agree with you, I do it at my political peril.
Me too.
I say we should not discriminate where there is waste.
Of course.
And where the sacred treasure of your constituents and mine are not being well spent for the mission of providing the common defense or the public good for that matter. And I know you're committed to that. I appreciate your comments. I just got 2 or 3 primary opponents for that side comment.
Let me know if you need help.
Help me less, Ms. Omar.
If we get the Pentagon audited, I will work to make sure you win your primary. I don't know about the general, but I'll get you through your.
We definitely have common ground there. Mr. Chuck Edwards from the great state of North Carolina, you just bring us on home with 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. To all of our guests, thank you for being with us this afternoon.
I am here today as a representative of a community that is deeply alarmed by the actions of this administration. Just weeks ago, the Trump administration defied a unanimous, we didn't think this was possible, but a unanimous Supreme Court order by refusing to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father wrongfully deported to the notorious prison in El Salvador. Despite the court's clear directive, the administration continues to ignore the rule of law, undermining the very foundation of our democracy. In my own district, the situation is equally troubling. A graduate student at the University of Minnesota was detained by ICE agents without warning. Despite having no involvement in political activism, he was taken from his home, held without immediate explanation, and had his visa retroactively revoked. This action not only disturbed his education, but also instilled fear in our academic community. These are not isolated incidents. Across the country, people are being detained and deported without due process, often based on tenuous or unverified allegations. The administration's use of obscure laws like the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to justify these actions is a blatant abuse of power. We must ask ourselves, if the rights of non-citizens can be so easily disregarded, whose rights will be next? Our Constitution guarantees due process and equal protection under the law to everyone in this country, not just citizens. If the government can silence you, detain you, or deport you while defying court orders, then none of our rights are safe. If we let this slide, we are saying the Constitution is optional, and it is not. What we are seeing is authoritarianism creeping in through the back door, one ignored ruling at a time. My colleagues and I are ready to fight back with everything we've got. Thank you, and I yield back. Let's keep clarifying some points to better understand the true impacts of our immigration policies. Mr. Pierre, how has the restriction of legal pathways significantly increased reliance on asylum?
Well, look, I mentioned 3% of the people who are going through the green card process get a green card each year. So that right there tells you we're about 97% closed. People don't look at this as an option. People are going to die in these backlogs before they get green cards. And so, yeah, they look at it and they say, there's no way. This is not an option for me. And so they come to the border and they tell us that that's why they're coming. There's no visa category available to the people who are showing up at our southwest border.
Thank you for that clarity. Can you confirm that immigration policies that facilitate legal entry have reduced illegal entries? Yes or no?
Absolutely. The parole sponsorship programs that the administration rolled out have dramatically reduced the number of encounters of Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans. Even Venezuelans are down compared to what they were before these programs were announced.
Mm-hmm. And our Republican friends always say people can come here legally. Could you walk us through this Cato chart outlining the mess that our legal immigration system is?
Yeah, this is why 97% of the people who go through the process get excluded, because there are all these different restrictions in place. And you go through each one. There are multiple different categories here, obviously. Refugee program, you got one out of 100 million displaced people worldwide getting in. You have the diversity lottery. Again, it's a 0.2% chance of getting in through that. Family sponsorship, 9 million person backlog there. Again, you're going to die before you see a green card through that process. So you go through each one of these things, and you can see how restrictive it is. Ultimately, you end up in the employer-sponsored categories, and even those, the ones that are supposed to be for skilled and all about our economy and everything, even those are incredibly backlogged. Over 2 million people waiting for the opportunity to immigrate legally through those.
Yeah. And finally, in terms of real costs that we should be talking about, isn't it true that immigrants generally contribute more in taxes than they consume in public benefits?
That's right. Our report looks at all taxes and all benefits of all categories. We look at the entire budget for state, federal, and local governments, and we find $1 trillion in tax payments versus just $700 billion in benefits, $300 billion net gain from immigration.
And Mr. Pierre, is it fair to say that our debate around immigration often overlooks the actual facts and data needed to craft sensible policies?
Yeah, I think if we started with the premise that these people could be contributors, then we would ultimately craft a much more rational immigration policy than we have right now.
Maybe it's about something else entirely. I won't speculate on what that something else could be, but I hope that some of my colleagues will reflect on why the idea of immigration or the changing face of our country seems to unsettle them. We know that there are undeniable benefits to immigration. The real costs are rooted in poor policy decisions. Our restrictive and failed immigration policies are costing us not just economically and fiscally, but also harming global standing and dividing our communities. With something as complex as immigration, this discussion merits thoughtful consideration and not whatever this hearing is about.